Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Perry. I am the founder of Kit, a company that was acquired by Shopify back in April 2016. With me is Holly, the founder of Pixie, Narubi, the co-founder of Ordero, and Josh, the co-founder of Swell. This is a panel discussion that was supposed to be held at Unite 2017, but due to electrical difficulty and a very rare powder outage here in San Francisco, we are, to my knowledge, hosting one of the very first video conference panels that I definitely have ever participated in. I think that they probably have ever participated in as well. And we are going to cover content to talk about what it's like to be a developer on Shopify, how these three extraordinary entrepreneurs have been finding success. And unfortunately, you can't participate in Q&A, but if you do have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is mp@shopify.com, and I can hopefully put you in touch with one of these amazing entrepreneurs. So without further ado, I'd like to get the question started, if that's okay with you three.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Thanks for
having
us.
Absolutely. Excited to actually finally get to do this. And again, sorry we couldn't do this in person, but I'm sure you guys have been all busy since then and building your businesses. So I'd like to actually start this with Narubi, because Narubi, to my knowledge, has been building on Shopify as an app developer the longest of this group, including myself. And I'd like for maybe Narubi just to kick it off by telling us what Ordero is and what it does for our merchants on Shopify.
Absolutely. So Ordero is a web app for Shopify merchants and that are selling on Shopify and maybe on other platforms like Amazon or eBay or Etsy. And what Ordero does is it helps them print shipping labels and keep their inventory in sync. So it's an order and inventory management app for online retailers.
Awesome. Yeah. And obviously logistics is the key part to selling things online. So I'm sure you have a lot to unfold there with that. And I'm going to actually then pass it to Holly, because to my knowledge, Holly is second in line here. So Holly, you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Pixie.
Yeah, sure. So Pixie is a image editing company. We have two apps on the Shopify App Store, and we will edit and optimize your product images within 24 hours.
Awesome. That's great. And Josh, you've also been building on Shopify now for, I believe, about a year and a half or 2 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right. I guess we're the newcomers of the bunch, it sounds like.
New kid on the block.
It's been a while, but yeah, it's been about 2 years. When I think the initial beta went out there about May 2015. So yeah, it's been a quick journey, but it's been a little while, I suppose.
And what does Swell do specifically?
Yeah, so we call ourselves an incentive marketing platform. And so really what that means is we help merchants run their own rewards programs, referral programs, and that sort of thing. And then obviously have much broader visions for what that means in the future. And really what we want to do is help our merchants reward their customers for whatever it is that they're interested in. So today it's rewards and referrals. Tomorrow we'll go a little bit beyond that, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, incentives are very powerful to keep people coming back and helping our merchants find success. All three of you are incredible entrepreneurs. I'm familiar with your apps and your businesses. But the one thing I don't actually know is what actually drove you guys to starting these companies. So I'm going to actually ask Holly to kick this discussion off, and if she can kind of dive into what motivated her to start her own company.
Yeah, so I think starting my own company was not a conscious choice. In 2013, 2012, I was building Shopify stores and other e-commerce stores and in a marketplace, primarily for retail businesses in Australia who had a really good retail store but no online presence. And then I realized that their product content was terrible. They were giving me all these images and product descriptions to upload. And I was like, how do you expect to sell this product? That's terrible content. So I put up a landing page for Pixie, and essentially someone in another state in Australia submitted 800 images in our third week. So I realized it was a bigger problem than just building one store for one business. I wanted to help many. So that's really why how I started Pixie. But I think still back then and still today, I love helping e-commerce businesses increase their sales, whether that's online or in-store.
So how far back do you go then before building Pixie that you're helping merchants with their Shopify store? And why Shopify? Was there any distinctive reason why you started there?
I have no technical background, and I'll go around to these physical stores, these retail stores, and be like, I'm going to build your online presence. And I was like, I'm going to go home and figure out how to do it. And so I discovered Shopify, and it was really easy.
Modern day door-to-door salesman. I like that.
Exactly.
Excellent. Narubi, you have a very interesting background from what I know. We've obviously been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
What got you going out there in Austin, Texas?
Yeah, well, personally, I always wanted to start my own company, and actually went back to get my MBA with the idea of I'm going to take these 2 years and figure out like what that company is going to be.
Yep.
I wasn't sure it was going to happen while I was in school, but I was lucky enough to meet my two co-founders, and there's four of us. We then met our CTO while we were at UT Macomb's School of Business. And one of my co-founders and CEO had experience in IT logistics. And we did a project for this online retailer, this child psychologist that was selling like child psychology therapy toys online and doing about $1 million.
Wow.
And we visited his warehouse, and he was churning through warehouse employees like on a monthly basis, didn't know how much inventory he had on hand. They were having a tough time getting orders out the door. And this was back in 2009 when we started exploring the space. We realized that it's a quickly growing space, that there were really no good tools out there to help online merchants do this easily without them having to worry about connecting to UPS or FedEx or USPS, just having everything connected for them so they could focus on selling. And make it completely web-based so that, they could just log in and have and do it. So that's what we set out to do. We always believed that shipping your orders out and keeping the inventory in sync is a problem that goes hand in hand. So we developed Ordoro to fix both of those things.
Yeah, and that is actually, just such an incredible story to be with you. I mean, so much has changed since 2009. I mean, I don't know if you can even articulate how much the space has developed. And Shopify from 2009 to 2018 or 17, it's two different worlds.
Yeah. And so, we started doing the market validation in 2009. We didn't start working on it until 2010 and didn't come out of beta until 2012. It took time to build it and to understand what features were important. But when we visited this online retailer, he was using a desktop-based solution called Stone Edge that was super painful. And he was responsible for maintaining the integrations between that system and UPS and shopping cart they were using, and it was just really painful to watch. So things have changed like so fast since then, and for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Barrier of entry has definitely changed. Josh, our the new kid on the block. What drove you to start your own business, man?
Yeah, so it's funny. I may be the newcomer, but my path really starts back in 2010. So it's been a long road. And I just graduated from college here in Boston. And I thought I wanted to be a finance guy. So I went and worked for what's called a family office. And basically I was part of a team of 7 that managed a couple $1 billion for some very wealthy Boston families. So about half of what we did was venture capital type investing. We got to do all kinds of fun things with their money, but one of those things was more VC activities. And so I would meet with these entrepreneurs, and we were on one side of the table, and we would be thinking in term sheet language and coordinating with lawyers and things along those lines. But every once in a while, I would get this glimmer from them almost of what it was like to hear them talking about their business and thinking about their business. And I just kind of caught the spark. I said, I would so much rather be on the other side of the table where maybe 10% of my job is talking to people like me, but the 90% is getting to build this thing on, with a team and with, it's such this incredible path that they're on. And so I said, okay, well, I have to do this, but I have no idea how. I don't know where to start. I'm just a finance guy. So I went and became a management consultant for 4 years. And so it was all with the idea of, I want to learn how to run a business. I want to know the ins and outs of what it takes to run one. And finally, the opportunity sort of presented itself when my co-founder went and He's my technical co-founder. He has a really deep CS background. And so basically he said, hey, I'm going to start this thing. Originally, the idea was actually rooted in Bitcoin, believe it or not. And so, yeah, I was story. Everybody asks it all the time, and it's definitely not the answer that you would expect. But the idea is Bitcoin is really good for merchants to accept because there are no chargebacks, which are obviously a huge issue for a lot of our merchants, and there are no credit card fees. And so basically what he said was, can I take some of that incentive that the merchants have to accept Bitcoin and help them share it with their consumers, with their customers? And what we quickly found out was that most merchants basically said, well, we're not so interested in Bitcoin, and it's a little side piece of our business. And the customer, no matter what we did, there wasn't really anything that the customer was interested in when it came to actually spending Bitcoin. But when we had all these merchant conversations, we found this pain point in this very rapidly growing, thriving ecosystem where they said, hey, I don't really care about incentivizing Bitcoin spending per se, but I really care about incentivizing all these other things. Can you help us do that? And so it's just really deeply ingrained in our DNA today, right? That's why I say we help incentivize whatever it is that you, the merchant, want to do, because it's the way we grew up, and it's something that's really important to us still.
That's awesome. One thing that amazing. Thank you, Josh, for sharing that. One thing that all three of you kind of I think is really important for our audiences to be aware of is that all of you at one point in your journey identified a pain point. A lot of people start businesses thinking solution first versus problem first. And so I actually want to get this conversation started with Holly here, because she shared her information of kind of going door to door and then realizing the bigger problem. And that is, are you married more to the problem, or are you married more to your current solution? I mean, what are you kind of passionate about? The problem of the pictures itself, or are you kind of passionate about the technology you've built?
I think I'm actually passionate about the people that have the problem, because at the end of the day, you can't be passionate about the solution because the solution's always going to change and pivot. You can be passionate about the problem, which I am, but that problem can come and go depending on the time and the ecosystem. But I'm really what keeps me going, and this is what I tell all startup people, anyone who's starting a business, is you need to be passionate about the people that you're solving the problem for. Because I love fashion, but I don't want to be involved in fashion, have anything to do with fashion. I just want to wear fashion. And if I got involved in fashion, then I know that when the days are really hard, you would just give up and move on. So I think it's about being passionate about the people that you're helping.
I love that. Yeah, my own background myself, I grew up in small family businesses, so I obsessively think about small business owners, and I share a similar sentiment. Naruba, you identified something, and obviously had a 3-year rollout plan, so you learned a lot along the way about the problem, and you have an incredible product. I'm a huge fan of, but I'd like to kind of see what your take on that question is.
Oh yeah, this is my number one advice actually for entrepreneurs is market validation is so important. So clearly I'm passionate about the problem, and if you don't identify a true pain point before you get started, you're going to you're going to waste a lot of time and energy. And just to tell you guys what we went through, when we went to that warehouse and visited that child psychologist, the first thing that we did for him is we figured out he was carrying way too much inventory. So so he had, carrying costs that he didn't need to have. And so what we originally were going to do was an inventory optimization tool that would kind of tell you how much inventory you should carry based on demand. And we called about 100 online retailers. We just honestly looked online on people's websites and called their support number and talked to them. And we're like, hey, if we were to build this inventory optimization tool, how much would you pay for it? And would you buy it? And they're like, what? No, I don't even know how much inventory I have on hand. What's really painful is printing shipping labels. We're like, really? We thought the needs were up here and they were down here. And we're like, oh, well, that's a much easier problem to solve. Let's get started here. And eventually we'll move up to those more advanced features. Can you imagine if we would have started with just the solutions? we would have been solving a pain point that was like 3 steps ahead of the pain that we're feeling at that time. And so it's so important to really understand the pain that the customer that's going to pay you for your product is feeling. Yeah.
And Josh, you sound like you had kind of a very similar situation in Ruby where you thought you were going to go down one way and some of the feedback that you got put you down a different road. So what was it like for you to have that kind of flexibility in your early iterations of your business to make those adjustments?
Yeah, it was something that was actually really challenging for us because there's this divergent viewpoint, right? Where you want to be the one that you think you understand what people want and you have this great solution for it. And when you go out into the market and you get out there and people say, maybe, but what about this other thing? And so it's really hard to take that feedback and you incorporate it while at the same time trying to preserve some semblance of what you maybe originally built. But yeah, it's really challenging as an entrepreneur because in a lot of cases, the best feedback speaks directly to what you're not doing or directly against what you're currently doing. And so there's a psychological aspect to this that's how do I internalize that feedback and accept that this initial thing that I built is total crap and so yeah, I mean it was definitely an iterative process, but I think eventually what was important for us is not relying on just one data point, right? I think that was have 20 conversations, have 50 conversations, make sure that the conversations that you're having are reflective of this broader population, and then try to approach it from an analytical as opposed to an emotional perspective. This is really helping us understand what people want, and so this is what we need to build in turn.
Yeah, and it's really, really hard to separate the two, right? I mean, I think all of us probably to some extent are a bit prideful about the product decisions that we make.
Yeah,
the rejection aspect of it is certainly hard.
Yeah, I mean, so much time goes into those initial builds, right? When you're first starting it, you want to be the classic entrepreneur. You're working 20 hours a day. You're in the thick of it, and it's so exciting. So yeah, to have to do all of that and build this initial thing that, of course, you're really proud of because you're not used to iterating on product cycles yet or anything like that. You're just building this thing and seeing who's interested, and then that's feedback that says, "Hey, this is sort of interesting. If it did these other things, yeah, it takes a gut check and it takes a certain type of personality, I think, to be able to accept or roll with it to some extent."
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a certain type of tenacity to keep getting up and brushing yourself off. Now, there's a commonality. Go ahead, Ruby.
I just want to add one more thing. Is
that, of
course. It doesn't end with the initial, like I think Josh, you were saying, it doesn't end with the initial build. I think at Ordora, we've gone back now to continuing to do market validation. Your customers are your best source of telling you what they need. So it's a constant process to continue to market validate every little feature that we're going to release and understand that it's really what they're expecting. That's all I was going to add. It doesn't end with the initial build. Yeah, never. It's constant.
There's no finish line for sure. And I think that's something that has to be kind of bunked. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs who think that they're going to build something and then life will get easier once they get to that level and then that level, and they don't understand that it's just a continuous journey.
Right.
One thing I want to just point out is that obviously there's going to be a diverse group of listeners who watch this. Some have already started businesses, some haven't started businesses. They're going to be in a lot of different stages. There's one commonality across 3 of the 4 of us, and that is I had a co-founder, and Ruby, you have a co-founder, Josh has a co-founder, but Holly does not. And so I actually want to hear from Holly a little bit because I think, obviously there's some value in having a co-founder and diversifying your thought process and workload. But what has it been like for you, Holly, as someone who is non-technical, going door to door, decided to get into a technology business and kind of had to do it with no technical backbone?
Yeah, I would love a technical co-founder. However, I did 1 year of university in Paris and I had 1 corporate job. And so it made it really difficult to have, and then when I moved back to Australia after living in Europe for 4 years, made it really difficult to build out a team. And I was living in regional New South Wales, which is regional Australia. So there wasn't really anyone to hire. So you just had to do it by yourself. I think what you do, what I still do today, is I now have a team of amazing people. I actually was speaking to someone earlier today, and they were like asking how to start as a technical co-founder. And I said, if you're not going to, like, if you know that you're going to start a company, surround yourself with your dream team now. So while you're doing all this market validation and, you know, speaking to potential customers, you can build that team so, you know, when you need to hire those people, you can easily bring them on board. That's something I didn't think about at the beginning. I sort of like, you just do what you need to do at that moment, and you don't think much further ahead than, you know, the month, especially when you're building, you know, Shopify stores and you're just talking to people organically. So yeah, I'm still a solo founder today, but it helps having an amazing team and amazing engineers.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly.
So one thing I do want to note before we get to the next question is that there's this vibe and this long-standing myth that you have to be in San Francisco to be a technology software entrepreneur. And I'm actually the only person from San Francisco on this call. Obviously, Josh is from Massachusetts, Ruby's in Austin, and Holly's kind of all over the world, but currently in Australia right now. But what has it been like for you guys in your respective cities? And what has the technology or Shopify community been like? And Ruby, Austin has a very vibrant tech scene. So maybe you can kind of put some color around what it's like to be a Shopify developer in Austin, Texas.
You know, it's actually been great. First, I'll talk about just being an entrepreneur in Austin, Texas. Since we started this, the entrepreneurship environment in Austin has boomed.
It's exploded.
Yeah, it has exploded.
It's exploded.
And to have started Ordoro when it was like on the brink of exploding, and having access to advisors like Josh Baer and other amazing advisors. And what I will say about the Austin community is that it's like people want to help each other, and it's relatively easy to get time with someone and have coffee and ask for their advice. So it's been a very, very collaborative and supportive environment. That and the University of Texas as well has been very supportive of Ordoro. I mean, we were at the Austin Technology Incubator for the first year, having free office space there, like just huge. Amazingly. So like we have a huge support network behind us, and that we're very thankful for.
So 10-second elevator pitch: should an entrepreneur go to start a business in Austin, Texas? I think you said yes, for sure.
And the cost of living is not very high.
There we go. This is an entrepreneur right here.
The quality
recruiting just happening mid-panel. I like that.
The quality of life is amazing. The live music scene is awesome. No, Austin is really, we're really very fortunate to be there. And then from the Shopify standpoint, I have loved, we're like the Shopify meetup, like official meetup sponsors in Austin. And so we've loved building that Shopify community in Austin. Our office is like right downtown, so it works out great. And, you know, we have one next week that we're doing along with Shopgate. Also, interestingly, in Austin, there's a lot of like app developers, companies that are on the Shopify network. So it's good.
Awesome.
It's really good.
Awesome. And I'd love at the end of this, if you can kind of button up with sharing where someone might be able to learn how to attend a Shopify meetup in Austin. Yes. I don't know. I'm going to scare everyone that little last item question, so think of a good answer. Josh, Massachusetts, Boston, the home of MIT and Harvard, a lot of smart people there. What's the startup scene like? What's the Shopify scene like?
Yeah. Boston certainly has a good technology infrastructure, certainly has a good technology ecosystem and everything like that. I'm going to take the contrarian viewpoint here and say, if I had no other criteria, right? If all I was thinking is I want to start Swell and I'm not worrying about family or friends or any other life constraints, would I start a business in Boston? I think my answer would actually be that I would go to San Francisco.
Oh, interesting.
I say that because, and it's not to hate on Boston.
Sure.
Boston's awesome. But if I'm a person watching this thinking about, should I go to one of these other cities? Should I stay in my city, or should I go to San Francisco? I think San Francisco has certain benefits, and it's just that there is this ecosystem there, that there's so many people that are in your boat doing what you do, and I think that is just so invaluable as you're getting started that there's not enough that can be said for that.
Yep.
And I think it is a big but. let's say there are life constraints, right? You have a family in a certain city, or you don't, it's tough for you to move to San Francisco, or San Francisco is extremely expensive, et cetera, et cetera. Places like Boston are awesome little ecosystems. So we have some SaaS startups that are now public. So there's a company called HubSpot here, which is a big SaaS success story that a lot of people look to. There's a lot of enterprise technology. So there are older companies like Oracle and SAP that have really big presences here in Boston. So the ecosystem definitely exists, and there's a nice little. We've actually found that it's much smaller than we originally thought. So whether it's other developers, other companies, VCs, et cetera, it's been really good in fostering and everything like that. We are actually the hosts of the Boston Shopify meetup also. So
excellent.
Boston Shopify meetups, and yeah, it's been great. It's really something that really hit me earlier is when Holly said you really have to love the people that you're building the solution for, and it's something that I get to do less of today, and it's really easy to start distancing yourself from those people. But those meetups and that sort of thing really help to. These are not just faceless stores that are installing an app on an app store. These are real people that are starting their. So that part's been really awesome. It's been fun to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And again, maybe we have a couple more questions left, but at the end, maybe if you guys want to share your contact information, I'm sure the Boston community would love to hear where they can attend some of your meetups.
You're 1 in 2 weeks, so not quite
2 weeks. All right, so there's one coming up next week in Austin, 2 weeks. Now let's hear, is there one coming up in Australia? Let's see if we're going to go 3 for 3. Okay.
I don't host it, but I am speaking at it. It's on the 7th of June. There's people coming from New Zealand as well. There's people coming from all over the place, but the one in Brisbane happens to be the largest one in the Southern Hemisphere. It was only like the second meetup, and the last one was 200 people, which is quite a lot for Australia.
That's a lot.
But I do agree I do agree with Josh. Like, I actually moved to San Francisco 2.5 years ago and have spent most of my time since building the company in San Francisco. I think it's really good for people in tech, so app developers, building SaaS companies. Maybe not e-commerce. We have a few customers who have physical stores and Shopify stores in San Francisco, but I wouldn't say our customers are there. I would say our customers are elsewhere in America, just because probably the cost of living, and also I don't think San Francisco people really care that much about fashion and objects as much as other places in the world.
Shots fired. Shots fired. I'll be sure to put on my Sunday best next time you come to our office. I've taken note.
I look forward to it. But yeah, I think San Francisco has a high density of a fantastic community and people who will help you. Having said that, it's since this year I've spent a bit more time in Australia, and it's grown. The ecosystem and startup ecosystem in Australia has grown a lot in two years. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I know we're starting to build a presence there, and I don't know if you work with Reese or not, but
yep.
A lot of attention in Australia. Great tech community. We're obviously kind of tapering towards the end here, and there's obviously some kind of cliche panel questions I want to ask, but I think it's important that there's some transparency and honesty with these questions. I'm obviously an entrepreneur for entrepreneur. I often talk about how hard it is. We can talk about the glamour and all those things in the process, but I actually want to hear, from Ruby to start, and then Holly, and then Josh, even though you all seem to be on a similar journey in terms of time, just how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. I'm sure you'll be happy to talk about how rewarding it is, but how hard is it really?
I mean, it's hard. And one of the hardest things, I think, is, that you go into it believing that because it's a startup, things are going to move really, really fast.
Yeah.
And I think what's been hardest for me personally is that everything seems to take longer than in my head I think it should take. I mean, things just take time. Like, you need to build relationships with partners. Like, everything just takes time. And even though you're in a startup and it's small and you're nimble, you also depend on like this whole outside world. And it's just going to take time. So for me, realizing that things take time and having the patience to stick with it not think that because things aren't happening as fast, it doesn't mean that they're not going to happen, but just to keep going has been invaluable. But that's probably been the hardest part, is that you want things to happen fast.
Yeah. Patience is vital. Is it harder than you thought it would be?
In the sense, yes, in the sense that like in my head, everything was going to happen so fast because there's clearly a pain and we've got the solution. So wham, it's going to happen. But it just hasn't, it's not as fast as I thought it would be.
Yeah. It's patience.
Yeah.
And urgency.
Yes. At the same time. It's a weird mix, but you gotta strike that balance.
Be impatient, but be patient. Holly, for you,
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a marathon, not a sprint. And you start out as a sprint and you're like, wow, actually there's still so much to learn, so much to do. And things do take time because there's things not only that, you need to build all these relationships and you're learning at the same time, but you make mistakes, like you hire the wrong people or your devs, late. And so you're months behind on what you thought would be really quick. So I think it's about understanding, like, you do need to pace yourself. Like, you do need to sleep. I think when you're starting out, you work these crazy hours and you still work crazy hours. You still work on the weekends. But I think it's about understanding that you do need to, like, breathe occasionally because it's not going to work if you're going for 7, 10, 12 years. I mean, look at Shopify's story. It's been 12 years. 12 since IPO. So you do need to make sure that you can pace yourself for that time.
I think that's incredibly valuable advice. Burnout is a real thing, and it is a marathon. Nothing in entrepreneurship happens overnight. I think that's the old saying, right? Is an overnight success takes 7 years. So it's gonna take a while. And then Josh, if you can kind of button us up on this topic, that'd be great.
Yeah. So there are two frameworks that I use to think about this. They both have to do with peaks and troughs. And so coming into this, when it comes to number of hours worth, let's say, the way I used to think about this was I mentioned I was a management consultant. So you have some down periods followed by some brief spikes, then more down periods. And so when I came in, I expected it to be more of the peaks, and that's certainly been the case. And so that's hard, right? Especially at the beginning, like Holly said, you're working a lot, no doubt. I think that part I expected to some extent, right? That's you come in thinking I'm going to do whatever I need to do. I'm gonna stay up late. I'm gonna wake up early. I'm gonna fight tooth and nail to make this thing work. I think the thing that is really hard that I didn't expect, because I'm a pretty even-keeled guy. I'm not very emotional in general, but is what my co-founder and I like to call the emotional roller coaster.
Oh yeah.
So that's the other framework that is really hard, and that is not something that I anticipated until I got in this. And I found that especially at the beginning, the peaks are higher, but the troughs are also lower, right? So you think, we went, especially at the beginning, we went a week without getting a new subscriber. What are we doing wrong? Are we growing enough? Am I doing right by my co-founder? Am I doing right by my team, by my clients? Are we doing everything wrong? Is everybody better than us? I mean, these are all of the questions that fly through your head on a daily basis. And that was the thing that for me has been really hard and really kind of a gut check in terms of confidence and everything like that. I mean, that's the thing that when they say entrepreneurship is hard, to me, that's the hardest part, is convincing yourself that you're hopefully still on the right path, despite things go wrong, for sure.
And for me, just to touch on that, because the emotional roller coaster for me was and still always is, right? It's your baby, you're working on it. It's like that you drag everyone else with you through that emotional roller coaster. I don't know about, you guys, I have obviously a wife, and these things, they affect the whole inner circle around you. And so I think for me, the hard time was that people around me knew I was on an emotional roller coaster, and to see when things are going a little bit tougher than normal, it's tough. It's tough. It's really hard. Just on some kind of final questions here. One thing that we've all kind of at one point done or have said in this conversation is that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. This is part of the process of building a business, is that it is your first time, you're encountering things that you've never done before. As your business grows and you reach new levels, it's new places that you've never been before. You got to hire people. You got a million problems. So, looking back at all the mistakes you've made, which mistake has been the most valuable to get you in this position? And Holly smiled when I asked that question. So I'm going to start with Holly, because maybe she's the most prepared at answering what mistakes have been the most helpful.
I think the biggest mistake, like life mistake, is that in 2007, I built a travel website. I didn't build it. I took my life savings to a digital agency to build a travel website. Never managed a project in my life. Didn't know anything except it was built on Joomla. And I did that actually again with an e-card website a couple of years later in around 2009. And I think my biggest mistake was building too much and not having a customer. So even today, when we launch a new feature, we do it as basic as possible. When I say basic, I mean really basic. Like we could literally we've built an image analyzer tool that's not public. We literally just emailed 1,100 people to see if these 1,100 people would use it. And 80 people said, yes, we want the image analyzer report back. The algorithm isn't perfect, but we can at least see that people want it. So I think my biggest lesson is like, what can you do without building any tech?
Awesome. That is fantastic advice, actually. Narubi, anything you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, I think earlier on, we were under this, I think we were kind of searching for the silver bullet, this one thing that we were going to do that was going to just like make us grow and kind of like grow like crazy. And what we figured out, at least in our space and in our business, is that we needed to stop searching for that one thing, and we needed to do a lot of little right things, and we needed to focus on the product. And I think that happened. We did a spiff program with sales reps at one company, and we saw a slight bump, but as soon as that spiff program was done, the bump went away too. And it was just like, okay, we gotta stop looking for this one thing and just focus on the right things, and cumulative, you'll get there. So I think that was like an aha moment. Like, okay, enough of like searching for this one thing. Yeah,
definitely. Josh.
Yeah, so I think we waited too long to hire our first team. And so it's something where we were two co-founders, and we were just really concerned about getting the exact right person, the exact right profile, and everything like that. And it kept us from bringing someone on for a long time. But the silver lining to that was that, of course, by not having anybody else on our team, with the exception of two co-founders, we did everything. So it gave both of us, I think, this really good understanding for how the ins and outs of the business worked, whether it's me understanding how a lot of our technical infrastructure is built so that I can talk about APIs and SDKs and things like that, and not completely fall down on myself when I do it. And then similarly, it allows my co-founder to understand what we do from a marketing perspective or even a sales perspective and that sort of thing. And so as we then look for people and we build out these different departments, if you will, in the organization, we both really know how they work, what works well, what doesn't work well, and that better allows us to give more direction to the team members that we bring on, which is really important, because I think one of the challenges when you're operating in this startup ecosystem is that you're inherently operating without structure. And so to give them structure by saying, listen, I did this for 6 months longer than I should have, and here's how you should do it, that's been really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is vital when onboarding people, and a very valuable lesson, no doubt. So we're wrapping up here. I'm going to thank all of you guys in a second, but before I do, there's 3 Shopify meetups coming up. All 3 of you are going to be at them. I'd love to see if you'd be willing to share how they can get in contact with you guys and come and see you and maybe get an autograph or have a beer with you, or, shake your hand and high five you. But Narubi, if someone's watching this and they, want to ask you a question or get some feedback on something or agree with some beautiful thing that you said, what is the best way of getting in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me, email me. My email is pretty straightforward, Naruby, Naruby @Ordoro. You can also, and if you want to find out about the meetups, go on meetup.com and look for the Shopify Austin meetup and join the group. We also have an invite link that goes out so that you can RSVP. And we usually have Shopify partners like tweet that link. So if you don't follow Shopify partners at Shopify partners, you definitely should. That's probably the best way to stay in the loop about all the meetups.
Yep, 100%. Josh, how can people get in touch with you, bud?
Yeah, of course. So my direct email is josh@swellrewards.com. So SWELLREWARDS.com. And yeah, when it comes to the meetup, so the next one is in Boston on June 1st, I believe. A resource that I think now exists, which may not have a few months ago, is I believe there is a Shopify partners page where they actually list all the upcoming meetups by city. So that's a great resource as well. If not, shoot me an email and I will make sure that you get on. We keep a pretty good mailing list for both partners and merchants for our meetups. And so happy to get you on there so that you stay in the loop.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And last but certainly not least, Miss Holly.
Hi, it is Holly at Pixie, PIXC.com, my email. And the Shopify meetup, I don't actually organize them as I mentioned before, but I am speaking at the next one, which is 7th of June, and they're all on meetup.com. But again, if you email me, I'm happy to connect you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I want to thank all of you guys for your transparency and sharing a little bit about your worlds and building your businesses. I'm sure I've actually been very inspired by the bond that we've had here in terms of some similarities, but certainly motivated to keep building greatness alongside of all of you. So thank you very much for improvising and doing a virtual panel. Hopefully we can do this again in person in Unite 2018. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Have a great day.